Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a very warm welcome to each one of you. As Program Director of the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence, I am extremely pleased to be your guide this evening as we culminate our 5th program year with this awards presentation ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Michael Mansu.
I am delighted to welcome you to the 5th convocation of the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence as we induct Mrs. Paula Lucy Smith, Professor Leonard Ogaro, and Mr. George Simon as our 2012 laureates. We congratulate you and your families for your major achievements. The purpose of tonight's function is to highlight and honor your major contributions, and this is in accord with our core mission, which is to identify and promote persons who have achieved excellence in the Caribbean and who we believe will continue to contribute significantly in their spheres of activity. We believe that our mission will stand the test of time, and that in this current period, our work is particularly relevant, as this is a season for introspection, as several of our Caribbean nation states have now completed or will shortly complete 4 or 5 decades of self-rule and independence. Any analysis of the complex and multidimensional task of nation building quickly brings us to the identification of persons who, by dint of raw talent, hard work, and leadership, have made a difference in our communities, creating, innovating, and making important things happen with genius, enlightened thinking. Leadership is the working definition that we use to find and identify persons of Caribbean excellence. Tonight's laureates are the best in the categories in the considered and possibly infallible judgment of our panel. As judges, we are always deeply impressed with the stature and diversity of the nominees. Indeed, we as judges approach our work with oodles of humility, as often our final judgments have to be so finely and so delicately balanced. We are particularly indebted to all who have agreed to be nominees, and we value very much their participation. The addition of tonight's 3 laureates brings to 16 the number of our laureates. The Anson McCall Foundation has contributed $7.5 million to facilitate and prosper the work of the 16 winners of this award. On this, our 5th award ceremony, we feel confident in asserting that our laureates as a group have more than lived up to their promise of excellence, and in so doing, they have contributed to the growing respect and prestige that the Anthony N. Sabga Awards now enjoy. Tonight, we present to you our 3 new laureates. They and their tremendous biographies will speak volumes for themselves. But as you consider their work, I ask you to think about the plight of illiteracy, the Caribbean's need for self-sufficiency in food, and the rare ability to combine several art forms and disciplines as practitioner and as teacher. Let me acknowledge the tremendous contribution of the Anson McCall Group and the Anson McCall Foundation for its 100% support of this awards program. Let me say to Executive Chairman Norman Sabga and the many members of his management team who are here this evening that the Caribbean community values greatly your support and promotion of Caribbean excellence. Let me also acknowledge the presence of the man who gave his name to this award, the man who has nurtured it from the very beginning in 2005. Arguably, Anthony Sabga is a living example of excellence, excellence in practice and excellence in progress, as he is still at work, and we know that we'll find much more to do. We look forward to that, Mr. Sabga. I believe that you, sir, have promoted this awards program because you understand better than most the travails of fragile human beings who challenge themselves to innovate, to discover, and to achieve. The awards program that bears your name will transform and uplift individuals, communities, and nations for decades to come. Let me also thank this audience for attending this function to honor and acknowledge the great work and contributions of Paula Lucy Smith, Professor Ogaro, and Mr. George Simon. Everyone in this audience knows how much remains to be done in this our Caribbean region to fix our communities, to fix our economy, and to imagine and create an acceptable future and a common identity. Everyone here knows the complexities, the uncertainties, and the ambiguities that impinge on this future. And everyone knows that when the historians shine their searching light on this period in our affairs, tonight's laureates and those of kindred spirit will stand out as pillars of creativity and innovation, pillars of audacious hope and abiding faith, and pillars of lofty accomplishments and solid achievements. Because of you three laureates here this evening and your predecessors, and the infinite promise of your work, we can verily believe that the Caribbean will prosper and prevail. I thank you.
We now present our laureates to you. We will look at a brief vignette of their lives and work. They will receive their prizes, and then they will address us for a few moments. Therefore, it is with great pleasure that I present to you the 2012 laureate in Arts and Letters, Mr. George Simon of Guyana.
Guyana has two faces. Its Caribbean face shows the features of a country locked into underdevelopment, unable to exploit the potential of its huge hinterlands. But Guyana's other face shows the features of a continental hinterland, which has another history entirely, the history of the first peoples, who have been largely left behind in the modern world. Thanks to George Simon, the 2012 Anthony and Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence Laureate in Arts and Letters, a member of the Lokono First Peoples Nation, both these faces may become better known and enrich our understanding of who we are and where we live. Simon is a painter and an archaeologist whose work in both areas has been path-breaking. Most recently, he was part of an expedition which made a discovery which might rewrite the history books about complex civilization in South America, which existed thousands of years before the Christian era. The source of these discoveries is in a series of mounds between the Berbice and Corentyne rivers.
These mounds are literally, they're man-made, and they were used in pre-Columbian times for planting agricultural fields. These are fertile soil taken from creeks, tributaries of this river, and placed on higher ground. They had obviously working on this for thousands of years. From the recent radiocarbon date from one of these mounds, a back of Jubilee here, dates to 3000 BP.
The mounds were first seen from the air by Major General Joe Singh in the 1980s. At that time, Simon was working as an artist turned archaeologist under the mentorship of the legendary Guyanese polymath Dennis Williams. Their relationship began when Simon returned from England in 1977, where he had been trained as a visual artist.
When I came back, I met Dennis Williams, and he had just started the art school, the Barrow School of Art. And he invited me as a lecturer there, and I worked there until 85. When again, in the meanwhile, Dennis had moved on to establish what is called the Walter Roth Museum of Anthropology. In 85, during that period, he was doing a lot of research in archaeology, principally in the Northwest, looking at shell mounds. And he invited me over to the Walter Roth Museum to be his research assistant.
The archaeological investigation began a project which would last more than 20 years and lead to a collaboration with US universities and the collection of data which might change conceptions of pre-Columbian life in the region.
George's find the significance of it is that it is bringing forth new knowledge. He's working along with Michael Heckenberger and Neil Whitehead. Heckenberger is from University of Florida, Whitehead from Wisconsin. And they're working along with him. They've been given a grant to do the excavations.
The group has documented its findings, and they are now being reviewed by academic journals. But while he waits for the results, Simon is taken up by his other pursuits, art and teaching.
Looking at the work he's done in the last 20 plus years, he has done what ideally you want visual artists to do, or they would hope to do, which is to evolve. He's worked with artists in Chad, he's worked with artists in Haiti, he's been back and forth to Guyana, and everywhere he's gone, he has been impacted by the culture.
Simon's achievements have been recognized in Guyana. He is highly thought of in artistic, academic, and government circles, but this recognition was earned at a great cost.
One of the things I think that it's important to note in Guyana is that persons like George Simon, at the age group he is, was very special in terms of many Amerindian people of that generation did not have access to education. So the fact that George and a number of other, a very small number of Amerindians of Guyana were able to have access to education, be able to read the heights that they were able to, was highly unusual.
Simon was born at St. Cuthbert's, a Lokono community. His father died when he was 3, and he was adopted by an Anglican priest and taken to England, where he was able to access education. But he decided to return to Guyana in 1977, where he began a career as an artist. But there was also a strong impulse to help those not so fortunate.
He tends to work with younger people and inspire them. He often works with students a lot. Students help him finish a mural in public spaces, so they get the companionship, they get the example, they get the practice. And so he's very inventive in that way, and very generous in sharing his ideas and his experiences.
Guyana is at the forefront where Amerindian art is concerned. And George is a leader in that. Not only a painter himself, but a leader. He has trained most of the leading Guyanese Amerindian artists.
But Simon's greatest achievement is to ensure continuity in an important aspect of Guyana's heritage, and to vindicate the faith placed in him by his mentor, Dennis Williams.
Well, George, as a Guyanese, has taken over from Dennis Williams because he was the first Guyanese archaeologist. And we have George now, who is following in his footsteps and keeping up the work.
He's one of the country's foremost artists. And what makes that a greater impact is the fact that he's living in Guyana.
He has contributed significantly to art development in Guyana. I think you can regard Mr. Simon as a national treasure.
For these reasons, Mr. George Simon, artist and archaeologist of the Lokono Nation of Guyana, is the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence Laureate in Arts and Letters for 2012.
Mr. George Simon.
Good evening. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed honored to be a recipient of this prestigious award. I would like to extend my gratitude and thanks to the Ansa McCall Foundation for recognizing the work we have been doing in Guyana and bringing it to the attention of the Caribbean and the rest of the world. I could not have made these accomplishments alone. There are players who, from the beginning in 1985, supported me and the development of the Berbice Archaeology Project. Thanks to the late Dr. Dennis Williams of the Walter Roth Museum, who nurtured my interest in the culture of my people and who guided me in my preliminary studies of the region. To Dr. Laura Rival of Oxford University, to Jeanette Fort, then head of the Amerindian Research Unit at the University of Guyana, to UNESCO, and especially Ms. Carmen Jarvis. With their support, I was able to conduct necessary ground and aerial reconnaissance surveys of the region. To undertake a study of this magnitude and complexity, it was necessary to involve professional individuals who had an interest in Amazonia. Dr. Neil Whitehead, professor of anthropology at Wisconsin University, accompanied me in 1992 to the Middle Berbice River at Fort Nassau to look at my research area. In 2009, Neil and I invited Dr. Michael Heckenberger, archaeologist at University of Florida, to look at the Hitia site. Dr. Heckenberger brought his expertise of Amazonian archaeology to the project. This collaboration resulted in the discovery of a major Terra Preta site on the bank of the Berbice River at Dubele. In 2011, with American Science Foundation grants, we were able to test 2 sites and to undertake extensive excavation at the Dubele site. The dates from this site were astounding. They go back to the Middle Holocene of 6,000 years before present. There is much, much more work to be done in the area. That was historically mapped as Arawak territory. We have not yet studied the pottery collection, nor have we analyzed the soil samples for plant remains. Principally, we intend to undertake extensive research work that will give us a true picture of the development of the area from the Middle Holocene to the present. Thanks also to the many informants who enthusiastically advised and pointed me in the right direction, to those who befriended me and offered me accommodation in their homes, to those who paddled me up and down river in their canoes, to those who walked along with me across savannas in scorching sun. Most importantly, I would like to thank the Mendez family, who have given us their wholehearted support for our research at Dubele Ranch. Thanks to the hard and dedicated workforce from the universities of Guyana, Florida, and Wisconsin, and from the Dubele and Wiruni areas. I especially want to dedicate this award to the late Dr. Neil Whitehead. It is with a heavy heart that I announce his untimely death. Neil, a friend and brother, unexpectedly passed away 2 months ago. I know he is here with us in spirit, and he will be with us in spirit when we return to the Middle Berbice this year. May he and his family be blessed for all he has done for me and my work as an archaeologist and as artist. Finally, on a lighter note, I would not have had a story to tell if it was not for retired Major General Joe Singh. As a young, eagle-eyed soldier, he made keen observations of the landscape on his many trips across the Berbice savannas. The thousands of hillocks he saw scattered there were unlike those in the Rupununi, he said. He reported these unusual landscape formations to the Walter Roth Museum in Georgetown. This was in 1985. Life has not been the same for me since. Thank you.
It is with equal pleasure that I present to you the 2012 laureate in public and civic contributions, Mrs. Paula Lucy Smith.
Trinidad and Tobago has technology, industry, and education, but the country also has alarming rates of murder, crime, and corruption, low productivity, and a low capacity for innovation. Several governments have struggled without success to explain the phenomenon, but it might be as simple as a lack of literacy. The official literacy rate is 98%, but survey evidence and many stories from the school system suggest that the rate is much lower, and this could be the cause of many social problems. Paula Lucy Smith, the 2012 Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence laureate in public and civic contributions, first noticed something might be wrong when she started teaching high school in the late 1980s.
So I was at St. Augustine Senior Com for 4 years, and I worked a lot with students who were in the technical classes, because a lot of those students struggled with reading the textbook, reading the questions. They could answer orally, but anything put into written form, copying notes from the board, that was a problem.
Mrs. Lucy Smith was not alone in noticing this problem, but she was one of the few to do something about it. In 1992, she founded the Adult Literacy Tutors Association, ALTA, an NGO where all the teachers are volunteers.
We have literally created an army of volunteers. If you talk to most other NGOs, you will find that they have staff and they may have some volunteers, but not what ALTA has, volunteers throughout the country in over 60 centers.
ALTA conducted a national literacy survey in 1994. A similar survey was done in 1995 by the University of the West Indies. The surveys provided alarming statistics. 22% of the population was illiterate, and only 45% were newspaper literate. These statistics provided an explanation for the paradoxical state of wealth and social decay.
We recognize that today a number of our students are leaving our schools who are not functionally literate. I have been involved with YTC, and what we found that many of the youths who are there, the vast majority, still need help in remedial reading. When you're not fitting in, and our society recommends, demands almost, that you need to be functionally literate, you're placed at a big disadvantage. And so who are you attracted to? Sometimes they may be lured to the gangs.
The literacy rate in this country is not 98%. We come up with hundreds of people through my working career who got out of universities who can't write proper sentences.
But the problem is not just illiteracy. And indeed, illiteracy might obscure other problems, like learning disabilities.
You have over 100,000 dyslexics in the country. That's more than all the other disabling factors put together.
And there is another dimension of the problem of illiteracy, which has to do with more than schools, but with the whole society. The national environment and culture may in themselves be not conducive to literacy.
Children are disadvantaged because of the lack of language experience in the home or in the daycare center, in the preschools. We're not a society that appreciates the amount of language the children need. You know, if you go in a doctor's office in Trinidad, people sit with their children, and when the children move, they get a little slap. If you go to a doctor's office in England, the parents have a magazine open or a book, and they say, "Look at this dog, it's a brown one. Can you find any other brown dogs? Oh, let's see if we can find any more." And they're going through the pages. And there's this all long sort of description of what they're doing. We don't do that in Trinidad.
By the time a child starts school at 5, the parent has had 4 years to work with the child. And when the children move into school, the teacher then has 1 year. And if nothing has been done, if the language hasn't been encouraged, if the language hasn't been supported, it means the teacher has 6 years of work to do in that first year. People believe that literacy is just reading and writing. But literacy skills extend to listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking.
In the midst of all this bad news, Alta is an oasis of hope. Its teachers are motivated, carefully selected, trained, and constantly retrained.
You don't just go to be trained. You go for an interview. You are advised to. You have to see 8 classes being taught. You have to go week after week and observe. And at the end of that time, you know if you still want to do all that work, or the senior teachers who are there would have an idea of whether you are suitable. Only then are you selected for training. And Paula is constantly all over the world, all over the internet, looking for ways in which we can improve it.
This is a huge undertaking. Given the scale of it, what would encourage a person to take it on?
I've never been a great follower. So having been 4 years in the school system, loved teaching, but the school system was killing me. The whole weight of administration and non-productive practices that happens in schools, and just how children are treated in the school system. So you go out there and you say you want to teach. This gives you the avenue to teach and create a learning environment that actually supports the learner.
I had a hard childhood, and I didn't go to school, and the hospital they stopped me from schooling because I got in an accident. I couldn't read my name when I see. So I used to go in the grocery and I used to stay and cry by myself to say, I alone couldn't read and write. And thank God for Paula accepting with open arms. I learned a lot coming to Alta. I feel more confidence in myself, and I could know how to handle myself in reading and writing.
I come from the independence generation, the 60s, where you were inspired to build your nation.
For these reasons, Mrs. Paula Lucy Smith is the 2012 Anthony and Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence Laureate in Public and Civic Contributions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to receive this award, especially in this 20th anniversary of Alta. No NGO survives 20 years on the strength of one person alone. So I share this award with my family and Alta's volunteer tutors, past and present, some of whom are here in the audience. In the audience too is Alta's founding student, Yvonne, who spoke on the video. This is fitting, since Yvonne was the first Alta student in the mid-90s to come out, face the cameras, and say, I am learning to read. A groundbreaking statement, because when an adult says, I can't read, often the listener thinks, you are stupid. And the non-reader knows this. So those who don't read learn early to hide this. Possible because you can't see literacy. How a person looks doesn't tell you if they can read and write. Indeed, this audience could be Alta students, because we all know trainees know how to dress. Not surprising then that adults with literacy difficulties are ignored. What is surprising is that this award is going to somebody working in the field of adult literacy. A really welcome surprise, marking a break with traditional thinking. We in the Caribbean think we are a literate people, despite the evidence of literacy surveys. So 18 years after those surveys, TNT still is citing these statistics of 98%. By spotlighting adult literacy, this award can start to change the way we think about literacy. Over the last 20 years, it has become obvious to me that reading is a skill, and like all skills, some of us have natural talent and we do it easily. Others have great difficulty and we need real instruction. Most of us are somewhere between there at the various points, between ease and difficulty. So some brains come wired for reading, others don't. Equally important, this wiring for reading does not say anything about your ability to think. This is brought home to me every year on the first day of training for new volunteer tutors, when we ask them to read 8 lines of mirror writing, backwards writing. All are readers and all have good passes in English, yet some of them struggle with the text to the point of giving up, and others read it as if it's normal text. Different wiring of the brain. For many on the course, that first experience when we show them the mirror writing, this experience of fighting with print is a real eye-opener to the complexity of reading, and it erases for all time the thought that just because a person can't read, they can't think. At Alta, we teach 2,000 students a year. The surveys showed that 200,000 in our country would be at Alta levels. One factor restricting the number that we can reach is funding, and the funds from this award will make a marked impact, particularly as this funding can be assigned where we see the need is greatest. I have a vision of taking Alta online or onto an interactive DVD. This will bypass the shame factor as well as national boundaries and take it Alta Caribbean-wide. So this grant, this award, can begin to make Alta online or a DVD a reality. But this award is much more than funding. An award for excellence makes adult literacy, and Alta specifically, visible as never before. So maybe Caribbean governments will begin to understand that literacy screening, followed by an effective program of instruction, is a compulsory part of every skills training program. Here in TNT, Alta is ready to partner with the Ministries of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education, Community Development, Education, National Security, because we're already working with National Security in prisons, YTC, my part, and we can help the People's Partnership to actually deliver on campaign promises, 2 campaign promises, to work with NGOs, to make literacy a priority. There you go. Maybe 2, companies will recognize that spending to enhance employees' literacy is money well spent and see Alta as a partner to develop a literate workforce. Maybe Alta will get more volunteers and even new partners to take the Alta program to those our free classes don't now serve, like the disabled and teens. Maybe adult literacy courses will become as commonplace as computer and cake icing courses. When going to an adult literacy class is no more emotionally challenging than doing a cake icing class, then we will be on our way to literacy. Maybe this is all being optimistic, but optimism is a necessary trait in NGO work. Years ago, a volunteer consultant from the Canadian Executive Services Overseas said to me that she had never met such a well-organized dreamer. So maybe these ideas are just me dreaming. But even if none of these ideas come to pass, this award will make those struggling with reading on a daily basis feel that they are not alone. That, in the words of an Alta student, they have a place in the heart of society. Yvonne often says that Alta is a big family, and like all families, one member's success reflects on the whole family. This was brought home to me this week when I was at the beginner class, just at the other end of Pembroke Street from here. Word had spread in the class of the award, and the students got together and presented me with a gift and card signed by all in beginner class, and they said that they were proud of me. And it struck me that it was more than just that they were proud of me. What was really important to me was that they were proud to be part of Alta. What a turnaround. Where before they felt shame in coming to an altar class. Now students are proud to be an altar, branded excellent. Thank you.
Mrs. Paula Lucy Smith of Trinidad and Tobago. Our 2012 laureate in science and technology is Professor Leonard Ogaro of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
In these uncertain times, the Caribbean's future is a topic that causes anxiety in leaders and citizens alike. We worry about the economy, about climate change, about crime. But a far more fundamental concern is about food security. There is no future if there is no food. This is where Professor Leonard Ogaro, the 2012 Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence laureate in science and technology, has made his mark, using science to directly affect regional food security.
The approach to food security is on two levels. One, of course, is the use of scientific research to improve the crop productivity. That is to say, in my case, really just introducing new crop types which are better able to withstand diseases and to cope better.
But as in everything else, science has made interventions in the area of food production that are not necessarily for the better. Hence, there is a need for a new area of regulation called biosafety to make sure scientific input, like genetic engineering, in agriculture has no deleterious effects.
Genetic engineering produces life forms which we have never seen before, and we're not quite so sure how they will behave in the environment. Also, one's not quite so sure what happens to people when they eat them, particularly over long term. The biosafety that I'm particularly concerned about is biosafety pertaining to genetically modified products.
Professor Ogaro is now the University of the West Indies Senior International Consultant on Biosafety and Biotechnology. He has worked with the UN to formulate and implement regional biosafety protocols, but he did not get to this point quickly or easily. Born in rural St. Vincent, his academic gifts were clear early on, and he was a scholarship student to both the St. Vincent Grammar School and the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill. Professor Ogaro started his career as a lecturer at Cave Hill in 1988, and in 1999 was appointed Professor of Plant Pathology. One of his traits, unusual among scientists, was his desire to apply science to everyday life. This led to his being known in agricultural circles as the plant doctor.
The significance of his work is that through very basic research, he didn't go for the blue sky solution of researchers. What he did was actually look for areas that affected the productivity of the agricultural industry that means so much to us.
In 2009, NIHUS recognized Professor Ogaro as one of the Caribbean's icons in science, technology, and innovation. Professor Ogaro has been extremely influential in the research to reduce the spread of diseases affecting Caribbean agricultural crops which are crucial to countries in this region. And I am truly pleased that he is now being further recognized by the Caribbean Awards for Excellence.
But like most gifted people, Professor Ogaro was an inspiring teacher, and several of his students and protégés are now distributed through ministries of agriculture throughout the region.
Let's say you were approaching a problem and there was a ticklish question and you came in for consultation. He was able to cut through that and help you move forward. So he solved problems. Over the past 5 to 10 years, his work has improved our production of certain crops that we export, and I'm talking about pepper, tomato, yams, and which we are trying to increase in terms of our productivity for local consumption as well.
In addition to his practical work in putting science to the service of the region's people, Professor Ogaro has maintained an impressive academic record. He has published widely in scholarly journals, ranked in the top 10 in his field, and he is highly regarded internationally among his peers.
I think the areas that are the most influential of where he's worked have been in this group of diseases, of bacterial spot diseases of crops, and that's probably been the largest portion of his publications, despite working on a really wide range of things. I think in that area particularly, he's well known, and I'd say particularly by the scientific community in North America.
The award given to Leonard Ogaro is not only right for the Caribbean, but it manifests in many ways what is right and important about us.
For these reasons, Professor Leonard Ogaro has been named the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence Laureate in Science and Technology for 2012.
Ladies and gentlemen, and my own guests, including my wife Juliet and sons Leonard, who is 9, and Jules, who is 4, my brother Robbie and his wife Ingrid, my sister Ilonka, and my long-standing secretary Cynthia Spooner, and the Melville family, inclusive of Cecilia, Debbie, Carol, Sean, Sheldon, and Cindy, all from Twin City, Trinidad. There are 3 more guests I will acknowledge later on in the context of my work during this acceptance speech. I have had many awards for accomplishments in my career as a scientist and academic, but none as publicly acclaimed and perhaps prestigious as the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards of Excellence Laureate in Science and Technology for this year, 2012. For this reason, this award is very special to me and the numerous persons who have invested in my career. Among these persons are my parents, grandparents, and the remaining members of the innermost circle of my family, all of whom, from as early as my childhood, thought I was special based on my performance at school. I enjoy their affection very much and enjoy doing well for the fun of it. One of my lasting impressions about my childhood education in this context was when I reached the final class at primary school at age 11 instead of the usual 15 or 16 as a result of accelerated promotions, which were practiced in those days. At that time, I had written what was to become the Common Entrance School exam and the School Leaving exam, which is the path to teacher training for primary school if one did well. Well, I first passed the examination for entry to secondary school and had started secondary school when an aunt came to me with news that I had also passed the school leaving examination and that the Ministry of Education had selected me to start training to be a teacher. What was interesting about the encounter on later reflection was that my guardians left it to me to decide. Anyway, I was already at secondary school having lots of fun, and I stayed there. My choice was based on where I will have the most fun. This is probably what most people would expect of an 11-year-old child. I have told my wife a bit of my life story, and she remarked that had I decided to become a primary school teacher instead of remaining at secondary school, I would have aged prematurely, have an abundance of children, and would have been riding a bicycle. I thought she was cleverly trying to characterize the environment in which I grew up by its culture, limitations, and possibilities. This was rural St. Vincent, where I spent my childhood. On the basis of my wife's characterization, I believe I made a good decision. Among others who celebrated on the news of the award conferred on me are my very excellent teachers I've had good fortune to meet up. From the world of academia, I've been set on path of my career as a scientific researcher and academic by Dr. John Clarkson, who, as my PhD studies supervisor, introduced me to the world of advanced genetics and plant pathology, and the broader international scientific community in which I operated and sought recognition in my field of expertise. Dr. Clarkson is a UK citizen and former genetics lecturer at the UWI campus, where I pursued postgraduate studies. He's here tonight with his wife, Jenny. Dr. Clarkson is an enormously generous man. He brought me into personal contact with many of the most accomplished and sought-after experts in the field at the time, and surprisingly, I was able to establish real collaboration with a number of them at such an early stage in my career. As a result, I was able to have a clear perception of the international gold standard for my work in the hard-edged competitive world of academia, and I took on all the incumbent challenges, particularly in the core building areas of scientific and technical capacity, publishing in peer-reviewed journals, training of postgraduates, and securing grant funds. It is in the area of grant funding that I wish to mention my two remaining guests I earlier promised to publicly acknowledge. They are Mr. Ronald Baines, former advisor of the Agricultural Development Fund of the then Barclays Bank, and Dr. Winthrop Wilshire, former UNESCO advisor for the Caribbean sub-region. Ronald Baines is accompanied by his wife Shirley, who became my mother in Barbados. The offices of these two gentlemen were the primary financial sponsors of my research work in the early stages for nearly 6 years, after which time I was able to expand my funding sources and overall quantum of money for my research quite significantly. I'm very thankful that these gentlemen were able to clearly grasp the importance and relevance of the work I was trying to set up at the UWI. It was during this period of their sponsorship that I expanded my research and training work to the OECS sub-region, catering for viable agriculture. This venture into the OECS was exciting, mainly because the target countries responded so well in genuine collaboration. I provided the research and training plank for the countries, and they selected the crop problems and sent their eligible candidates to me for postgraduate training to address these crop problems, and in most instances provided scholarships for their nationals and the payment of the necessary fees to the UWI. This venture into the OECS contributed immensely to the body of work for which I'm being honored. It would also be remiss of me if I do not admit that I wanted to have fun doing this outreach work, and I enjoyed myself immensely. In 2005, I was approached by the United Nations Environment Program to become one of 6 managers for its global biosafety for modern biotechnology project based in Geneva, Switzerland. This overture coincided with my intention at the time to align my work more closely to global development trends and resources for greater impact on agriculture in the Caribbean. In this context, I wanted to focus on the area of modern biotechnology, with particular emphasis on prospects for enhancing economic development, taking safety concerns into consideration. I also wanted to apply modern biotechnology tools to address some of the agricultural challenges anticipated due to climate change. This is a very pressing need, which, if not addressed now, could result in the Caribbean being overtaken by disastrous events. Given my plans for this new thrust in work, my decision to take up the United Nations post was made easier when I was asked what it will take for me to come on board. This was the first of 2 occasions of being asked this question with respect to career opportunities. So you see, I was really continuing to have fun and enjoying myself. The new thrust in work has begun to bear fruit. Through it, 12 CARICOM countries to date are presently implementing globally funded biosafety programs, which will enable them to access the benefits of modern biotechnology while taking relevant concerns into consideration. It is in this new thrust that the material support provided by the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards of Excellence, the prestige of the designation laureate in science and technology, and the promise of further support by the Ansa McCall Foundation will be put to good effect for Caribbean countries. I look forward to continuing and enhancing the excellence brand the Ansa McCall Foundation has cultivated. I would like to end this acceptance speech by offering 2 bits of unsolicited advice to young people intending to pursue careers as research scientists. First, make sure that you love what you're doing and make it a point of doing well for fun. Second, pay great attention to the environment in which you intend to pursue training. I strongly believe that if you are trained in an environment framed around robust rigor, publishing in peer-reviewed international journals, adept scientific and technical know-how, grantsmanship, and project writing and development, you will create and enhance this environment on launching your own career. These are 2 steps for sustained above-average performance and accomplishments. I thank you very much.
I believe all our laureates deserve a round of applause. At the close of this evening's function, we begin our 6th program year with a call for nominations for our 2013 laureates. And I invite you to access our website, answercaribbeanawards.com, for further information on how you might nominate a potential laureate. Our work means much more when more people are involved. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Dr. Anthony N. Sabga and the directors of the Ansa McCall Foundation, I thank you all for joining us in this celebration of our 2012 laureates. May they be worthy exemplars for the peoples of our region. Finally, in the words of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Professor George Maxwell Richards, and he says, even ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Therefore, we all have a duty to change the environment of our region to one in which excellence becomes the norm, and we are not satisfied with just making a living, but are determined to create lives that bear testimony to our understanding of a more excellent way. Good night, and may God bless and keep us all. Thank you.